Which side is your weak side? Is it your forehand or is it your backhand? Which one tends to break down when you're under pressure in matches? Because most people have a side. Now, it's something that players generally spend a lot of time trying to figure out and trying to work on, but most players really struggle to fix those problems. So what I'm going to do in this video is explain why it can be so hard to fix your problem side and talk about some of the training that you might need to do to turn both of them into dependable strokes. Now, I hope you find the video helpful. If you do, it'd be awesome if you give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, really appreciate it if you could do that as well. So what this comes down to is there's some kind of physical limitation that's preventing you from making the technical adjustment, because our bodies aren't perfectly balanced. They're different from side to side, and it's those physical limitations that create problems with our strokes. So we want to look at this from two perspectives. We want to think about the actual movement side of things, because in order to hit a forehand or to hit a backhand, my body has to get in certain positions and be capable of doing certain things. And then we've also got the visual requirements, because I've got to be able to read where the ball's going. I've got to be able to watch the ball onto my strings and through contact. So we're going to look at things from both of those perspectives, look at some key movements so you can compare them side to side, key visual requirements so you can compare them side to side, and then talk about how you can start to train these things to address the issues. So let's look at things from a movement perspective first. Now, the hard thing about tennis strokes is we need to turn a bunch of different rotational movements. So we have to drive through our hip, then our torso, then our shoulder. We have to turn these different rotations into forwards movement and control the angle of the racket head at the moment of contact. It's going to look a little bit different on the forehand and the backhand, but it's still the same process of turning these rotational movements into forwards movement. So it's often differences in people's ability to rotate from side to side that can create problems with their technique. People can have both flexibility restrictions and coordination restrictions. So what we're going to do now is just quickly kind of look at movements and compare them side to side to see what's going on with you. In this video, we're going to focus on the range of motion and the coordination of the hips and spine, because they're often the biggest limiting factor for people starting with the hips. You know, when I hit a forehand, the first thing that happens is I drive through my right hip, either from a neutral stance or from an open stance. So I'm driving my hip into external rotation. So if you've got differences in coordination side to side between internal and external rotation, and if you've got differences in flexibility between the right and the left, obviously that can account for part of people's problems in their ability to drive into the strokes. So let's look at simple assessments for both of those. For the coordination side of things, real simple, hold on to something, stand on one leg. We're going to twist the leg in and out, and we're going to compare the coordination on the right side to the left side. Now, unfortunately, I find a lot of people don't have very good body awareness, so you might need to record yourself to see what's happening here. But when you do it, I'm trying to keep my pelvis still, so this stuff isn't moving. So I'm not rotating like that. This isn't moving. My body isn't moving. And I'm also keeping my leg pointing in the same direction. So my leg shouldn't be going from side to side. It's just twisting in and out. So we're comparing your ability to twist in and out on the right side to the left side without moving other parts of your body. We're also going to compare the speed. Is one side fast and the other side slow? So that's what we're looking at from a coordination perspective. For flexibility, we can test external and internal rotation really quickly. So for internal rotation, if I go into this position and drop my right knee down, how easily can I drop my right knee to the floor? This is measuring my right hip internal rotation. I can then do the same thing on the left leg. How easily do I drop my left leg into the ground? And notice both times, both hands are staying on the ground. So I'm comparing right internal rotation to left internal rotation. For the external rotation, we're going to test it like this. So if I test my right leg, I'm kind of in a figure of four position, and I'm going to drop forwards, and how easily can I get my chest into my leg? Is it easy to kind of flatten my body out, or does it feel restricted at the back? Compare that to this side. Can I more easily drop my chest into my knee on that side? Now, if you're really flexible both sides, you might not notice it, but if you've got a big limitation on one side, you'll probably be able to feel it really quickly. So from a hip rotation perspective, any imbalances side to side, whether it's coordination or whether it's flexibility, can potentially create big problems for your strokes. Now let's look at spinal rotation, because obviously your ability to rotate your spine is going to be essential for your unit turn and for being able to efficiently follow through. And again, on both sides, it's just the same. We're looking for side to side imbalances. The easiest way to assess this one, and we're going to start with the range of motion because that's the easiest out of the two, is to stand with your feet together, toes pointing directly forwards. You're going to keep your legs completely straight. I'm going to hold my arms out in front, and I'm just going to see how far I can rotate to the left and see how far I can rotate to the right. To get a gauge for how far you're going, just look in between your thumbs. So here, I'm looking at the camera. If I turn to the right, how far have I gone? Compare that right to left. Now, you're just going to go as far as you can go comfortably. You're not trying to force it. You're going to keep your arms pointing forwards. So if I do this and then I start to do this, it's going to seem like I can go further. So try and make it a fair test. Compare the right side and the left side, which one has better range of motion. And then once you've gauged that, then you can do coordination. It's a little bit more tricky to assess the coordination on this one, but what you're basically going to do is try and go as far as you can at speed. So how quickly can I rotate to the right? How fast does that feel? How quickly can I rotate to the left? How fast does that feel? Because if I'm really fast at rotating to the left, potentially that's going to help with my forehand. If I'm really fast at rotating with the right, potentially that's going to help with my backhand, and kind of, if we've got the problems, it's going to affect those shots. So we have the hip coordination and we have the spinal coordination. Imbalance is side to side. Now let's look at the visual side of things. Now, the first place things can go wrong visually is players struggle to read where the ball's going quickly enough, and that's what causes them to prepare late. But generally, when people struggle with late preparation, they struggle on both sides equally because the issue is just visual and how quickly they can read it. So we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on ball tracking because just like rotation, ball tracking is controlled differently from side to side. I'm not going to be able to take you through assessments for these because they're a little bit more complicated, so I'm just going to break down the different visual skills because we've got multiple visual skills that are involved in ball tracking. If I follow a moving target, I'm going to follow it in different ways. If it's going slowly, I can follow things in a continual motion. So I'm looking at a letter in the logo, I'm just moving it from left to right, my eyes are focusing on one of those letters. That's a smooth tracking motion. People can have problems with their smooth tracking motions, and if you've got a problem tracking it from left to right, that's more likely to create problems on your forehand and vice versa. But if the ball is moving quickly, our eyes actually make lots of little jumps, and they jump ahead to where they think the ball is going to go. The movement is called a saccade, but it doesn't matter. It's just a fast eye switch that jumps ahead. So how quickly and accurately your eyes can make switches can also be a factor into this. And you can do training drills where you just kind of switch between different targets. And if you look at things closely, if you analyze things carefully, often there's differences in how quickly people's eyes can move in one direction and how accurately they can land on target. And obviously issues going in one direction compared to the other is another thing that's going to create problems on either the forehand or the backhand. The next visual skill that we want to think about is we've got a reflex that keeps our eyes focused on a target as our head moves. So very important for your ability to track the ball as it moves, and our body moves in a different way when the ball is coming from different directions. So for this one, you're looking at a target. So again, focusing on a letter in the logo, and I can turn my head in different directions. Now this can be a little bit more challenging for people to tell, but often there's quite noticeable differences between their ability to keep their eyes looking on a target as they turn their head to the right and as they turn their head to the left. And then the final one that we're really going to be thinking about comparing side to side is going to be your ability to keep your eyes on a target as your head moves. Because as you watch the ball coming onto the contact point, your head and your eyes are tracking together. And it's a combination of all these different form movements that really allow us to track the ball onto the strings. But again, we can kind of test it. We can test it going from right to left, and we can test it going from left to right, and just, are we able to do this at good speed, keep our eyes locked on the target, or do our eyes lag behind and start making different movements? So they are the sort of things that hold players back visually. If there are deficits and differences between side to side for any of those particular visual skills, they can cause huge problems for your ability to hit either your forehand or your backhand. So the first part is kind of identifying the problems, and literally any imbalance side to side between any of those assessments that we've just done is going to be in part contributing to what you're struggling to do whether it's your forehand or your backhand. So anything that you found that was different from side to side, you want to work on training it and you want to work on correcting it, and you'll find that if you do that, it's going to actually really help your stroke, even though it might seem like a very small thing. So there's different things that we can do to improve flexibility and range of motion. It's something that a lot of players struggle to do, especially when they're a bit older, but generally the approach to improving flexibility for the hips and for the spine is to make yourself strong in the end ranges of motion. Stretching tends not to work so well for people, so often it's about making yourself strong in those end positions, and that's going to improve your flexibility. From the coordination side of things, we can train coordination just like we can train other things. Often you can make improvements just by practicing doing specific movements at specific speeds. There's also some really cool stuff that you can do behind the scenes to kind of speed up your ability to improve your coordination, but I've made a web class about that I'll place a link to down there, and I'll place a link to up there, so you can check that out and go through that separately. And then from the visual side of things, that's trainable as well. All those different skills that I've just done, the smooth tracking, the eye switches, the turning your head looking at a target, the turning your head and the target at the same speed, all those things are trainable if you work at them consistently. So for that side of things, I've got a free program that I've created to help you out with it. Again, I'll place the link down there and I'll place a link up there so you can grab hold of that, start to work on those visual deficits. But really, those are the reasons that players have a problem side to side. Yes, obviously you've got to work on your technique, but our techniques are underpinned by these physical abilities. If you don't have the ability to do something, well, guess what? You can't do it. The cool thing is, like I've just described, there is stuff you can do to change it. It's just a case of prioritizing it, planning it into your training program, and working on it. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video and it's cleared a couple of things up for you. If you did enjoy it, it'd be fantastic if you could give me that thumbs up. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. And if you want to go through some more assessments for coordination and for the visual system, these are going to be really important for your ability to time the ball. You want to check out this video here.